Welcome back everybody to the full game kit Operation Desert Road second tutorial. Today we're going to discuss the importing of your own 3D art assets. So let's take a look at what we're going to cover today. First we're going to do some preparation, a lot of ground to cover. So let's get started. For this tutorial I decided to create a voxel version of one of my favorite games. And that game is Space Harrier. I don't know if you know it. It's a pretty old game. So I gathered some reference of that game. Just online googled some stuff, some sprites, some screenshots. That was the first step. And I'm going to use those to create a sprite sheet. Just a regular 2D sprite sheet inside Photoshop, and that sprite sheet I'm going to use inside my voxel editing program. So it's not that I'm going to create everything from scratch. I used this as a starting point. Of course you can create your own stuff from scratch if you want. Once I got all the reference, I opened up Photoshop and I started work on the sprite sheet. Let's just take a quick look at that before we continue into the voxel editing program. That's this one I created at first, so I'll enlarge that a bit for you. So here you see some of the sprites I created, just taking them from the screenshot, resizing them and cleaning them up a bit. And as you might notice, it still has quite a bit of detail. And if you think that every pixel is going to represent one voxel, I came to the conclusion when I did my initial test that this might become a little bit too detailed and a little bit too high poly, so a little bit too much polygons. So I decided to scale it down even more, so it will it ended up looking like this. This is the one. Let's zoom in a bit. So here you can see that it has even less detail, and I needed to clean up the logo a bit, so I called it Voxel Harrier. So you see it has a lot less detail here in the version I'm going to use. And the main advantage to create a sprite sheet like this is that you can see all the characters and different sprites in relation to each other, which is pretty handy as a starting point. You might want to scale some stuff up later inside the voxel editor or in Unity. So this is the PSD I used. I created a PNG file out of that, and I'm going to use the PNG file. This one over here, I think, yeah. I'm going to use that inside the voxel editing program. So the next step is to create voxel objects out of the sprite sheets, and I'm doing that with a program called Cubicle. This is Cubicle 2.5 Master Edition, and this is already pretty old. I think you can get a newer one from Steam, and even a free one to try it out. And it's a pretty cool tool. I like it a lot. So give it a try. At first I'm going to create a new file. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to create something out of a 2D PNG file. I'm going to import it. So here it is. Okay, here's my file. It already has some depth, as you can see. So I'm not going to explain everything in a lot of detail, how the program works. There are tutorials that do that, but just to give you an just look at what I'm doing, and I'm going to explain a little bit why I'm doing stuff, so you can get a feeling of how you could approach this. So I'm going to enter the matrix So now I can really edit the voxels. I'm selecting this with my magic wand and deleting it with backspace. So now I already have like these separate objects. They're still part of one whole object, so we need to fix that later. The next step would be to give it a little bit more depth, because it's now just one voxel deep. I have to adjust the size first. So let's give it a depth of 8. So you can see it's now, I have more room to do stuff. And what I'm going to do is select everything. Right. And then I'm going to drag or move it, and while I'm holding the Alt key, so then I'm going to copy, I can copy the existing voxels. So there you go. It now has some depth, which you really need, because if you're going to look at the game from the top, you would otherwise just see like, well, almost nothing. Well, for some games and some styles it could work, but for me I really need some depth in the objects. So the second thing I did was I edited the back side to look different from the front side. I need to be able to distinguish between that. So what I did, for instance, is looking at this dinosaur, or sorry, excuse me, this mammoth. I changed the back that it doesn't have an eye on the back. So just pick this brown color, and then I started painting. So removing that. Oh, I need to deselect, otherwise I cannot paint. So I changed the back a bit. And what I also did was make it a bit more round. So I selected some of this and extruded that some more. I don't know if it's possible, you need to stay inside the... So, and you can put a lot of work into this, making them perfect. But this is already a pretty good starting place. You have all the colors you want to use, you have the shapes, you have the sizes set up properly. So one of the few things you need to do is make them all separate objects, because when I export this, like how it is now, I would just have one Unity file or one FBX file containing just one mesh. And of course I'm going to export one FBX file, but I need it to contain separate meshes for each of the sprites separately. So what I need to do is select one of them, like for instance the logo. I can just use copy, Control C, and then go outside this object by double clicking, and then press Control V, and you see there it is. Now it's its own object. I can give it a name, logo, and there you go, easy as that. So I did that for all objects, and then maybe we can take a quick look at the result. I think this is the result file. No, alright. So I threw away the original file, as you can see. What else? I gave them all names. You can see that here. What else did I do? I put a couple of hours into this just to make it look nice for you guys. For some, I think for this guy, I changed the pivot. That's pretty important. The orange thingy over here, this thing, that is the pivot of the object. That will be your pivot inside Unity as well. And it's pretty important because you use that for movement and for positioning. So it needs to be, if you want your player to be on the ground instead of inside the ground, you need to make sure that it's below the feet, of course. And you can do that here by just typing it in, and you saw it move. I need to change it back now. And of course it needs to be exactly in the middle. which sometimes is a problem if your object is not symmetrical. You can never exactly get it inside, you can never get it exactly in the center of the object, which is a bit of an issue, and I brought it up on the Cubicle forum, and I think they might be able to fix it. There is of course the option later when I'm exporting, and I'm going to show that now, to export all objects with a centered pivot. But that wouldn't work for this little fella, because then, like I said, you would have a wrong pivot. You would have a pivot that's in the center of the object, and all the positioning, well, is going to be a little bit up. So all the positioning is going to be a little messed up. Okay, now I'm going to export, so you can take a look at the export settings. Oh, by the way, I rotated him that he's facing the right. He's facing the camera, like he's facing the front view. That turned out to be necessary, otherwise I need to rotate him inside Unity, and I don't like that. So I'm going to export it. I think I need to deselect any object I have selected, so make sure you do that. Alright. Assets, project assets, resources, 3D. Important to put it inside 3D. I'm going to create a new folder here. New folder, and I'm going to call it Voxel Harrier. So hopefully then it's easier to distinguish all the new files from the old files. Okay, this is an okay name, Voxel Harrier total. I'm going to export all the objects at once. You don't have to do that. You can just throw away all the other objects and create separate files, separate cubicle files for each one, which sometimes is advisable if you want to keep it modular and want to be able to swap in and out sprites. Alright, this is my exporting settings. Material simple text, we'll take a look at that later. No optimization, because you can't do that with the material and texture setup. The pivot positions are as specified, so you might want you can choose between centered, like I said, which is fine, and then it just centers it all on each object separately. But like I said, I want it as specified for now, and we can change it later, so don't worry. The unit scale factor for this game, what works good is 12.5. It has to do with the size that you will see when you're heading back to Unity, how big this will be inside Unity. So I've calculated it this way, that every 32 voxels is like 4 meters, and our grid is 4 meters wide. So this works very well. Just keep that in mind, and then you can try out everything you like, and of course you can resize as well inside Unity, but it's not really what I would recommend. So we're gonna hit export. That's it. Alright, so the next step is going to be to bring it all inside Unity. So let's open up Unity again, and alright, and once again I forgot to mention that you can of course export it with any settings you like. If you want to create different material or texture setup or optimization, you want to use that, just give it a try. I see no reason why it shouldn't work. Just going to use this method and show you some pointers from that. So let's take a look. Let's try to find our assets. It's in resources 3D. Alright, here you are, Voxel Harrier. You see that Cubicle created, and I know a lot of modeling packages do that. It created a materials folder on the export of the FBX file. So you have the FBX file here. It contains all the stuff and the meshes as well. So so we have here the 3D file containing all the meshes. We have the material, and we have the texture. And as you can see, the texture is a collection of, it's more like a palette. I don't know if you can see it. So it's all these squares with colors, and all the UVs are mapped onto those squares. You can forget that. What I need to do is, hopefully I can show you the difference. I need to do something with the with the texture before we can go on. As you can see here in the viewport, you see these color gradients. That's something you don't want. You want, like, this needs to be green. It doesn't, you don't want the gradient there. So if you see all this gradient and bleeding going on, you need to check your texture filtering. So I'm going to take a look at that. So here's the texture setup. There's a couple of things you can change. Important here is to set it to no filter. You already see the improvement. So no more gradients, no more bleeding, and there's something else you could change, and that's the texture compression. This texture is already so small and it's taking up so little of your resources that you can easily set it to true color. And you might want to check if that does anything for your colors. Here you go. It's no longer green, this cloud rock, but it's gray as we intended it to be. You really saw that the compression, it even changed the colors of my stuff, and you don't want that, so make sure it's true color. Alright, so that's set up fine. Alright, it's looking fine. You have all these objects. I can go inside them, and here you can check the pivots of your objects. As you can see, they're all pointing into the Z direction. So like the blue arrow is the same as this blue arrow, which is fine, which is the regular way you want it to be. And also for the player it's fine, and you see the pivot located at ground level, which is fine as well. And you see that for a lot of these objects the pivot isn't set properly. It's set in the corner, in the left corner. So if you want to fix that, you can go right ahead. You can knock yourself out. You can just go here. Okay, so I'm going to try and fix one for you, just for demonstration. The mammoth, I'm going to fix it. Let's just see if it works. Alright, so there you are. There's the pivot. I'm going to fix it, and I'm going to put it on, I don't know, this thing is 25 wide, so let's translate it 12. That work? Yeah. Just there it is. Still not really centered, so I can improve maybe. Oh, I need to click here. Let's say 10. Okay, and then maybe I can do 8. Is that okay? Yeah. Well, I think if I export it like this, I'm just going to save the file and hit export. Export FBX. There you go. Alright, alright. And you see it has already updated. So there you go. And you can even do that if you already created prefabs. That's what I'm going to do next. So I have all these files here, and I'm going to create prefabs out of those. It's also pretty simple. I'm going to grab this little guy, and I'm going to, what shall I do first? Drag it out of the hierarchy. Alright, continue. I'm going to reset the position to 0. I always like doing that. Let's just hide this for a second. So here's my little guy. What else do we need to do? We're going to create a prefab out of it. So we're going to prefabs, And what I'm going to do is just drag it in here. I'm going to add the prefab suffix. We do that a lot, these suffixes, just to be able to easily distinguish what kind of file you're dealing with. Just see what this does. I'm going to add a player script component to it because it's going to be a player. So where's the player script? Here it is. And the way this is set up is for a tank or like a regular ground vehicle. So we need to change some stuff before it can work. We're going to change the movement direction to XY, the XY field. This for now maybe we can leave as it is. The firing. Oh, before we do anything we need to press this big button, set default values. We're going to do that first. Ching. Alright, so what that does, the button is gone as you can see, so you will know if you've forgotten it. What that does is create references to all sorts of effects that this player could use, so you don't have to enter those manually. So by pressing this button and setting the movement direction to XY, we're already pretty much good to go, just for testing purposes. So we're going to apply the prefab up here, and then we're actually good to go. So we can remove it from the scene, remove this as well. Before we can test it, we need to set this new player prefab that we created called Harrier Prefab. We need to set it as the current vehicle for your game, or the current player object, and you can do that inside the game object game script. I think it's a user property. Details, let's just call it, it's now on Apache. Let's just say, okay, we're starting out with Harrier Prefab. This is a string, by the way. You need to enter that as a string because it's loaded in dynamically. Let's save it. And hopefully now when we start the game, you never know, we're going to start out with our brand new player, hopefully. Fingers crossed. So, there we go. So we can open him up. Here he is, Harrier. Just take a look at him. I want to do a couple of things. I want to change the spawning spot of his weapon. It needs to be exactly, oh my god, at the correct spot, of course. Let's just see if that's correct. There you go. What I also want is for him to shoot different bullets. So let's try to change that. So let's open up the player script, and here you can see the current projectile is the default bullet. I want him to shoot energy balls, like these blue balls. I'm going to drag that in there. Let's take a look at the energy ball I just selected. I'm gonna drag it over here. It's pretty big and I don't want it to be this big, so I'm going to it's already scaled, as you can see, so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Is this still too big? Of course it needs to pack a little bit of punch. It spawned at this height and wanted to. You don't have to maneuver this thing. It's just for me, for now, to see how big it is. So, okay, you know, this looks about right. I want it to be big. I want it to be visible. So let's just let's take a look at the projectile script. Every projectile needs a projectile script. I need to maybe to up the speed a bit. I want it to be faster. Let's just say 100, very fast, and so I can maybe lower the lifetime a bit and do a lot of damage. Or no, let's just keep it at 10. That's okay. It doesn't have a trill, impact, explosion. Okay, I think it's okay as it is. Let's apply it, and then we can throw it away. Let's take a look if it's still, yeah, okay. I need to apply this prefab as well. So the other thing I want to check is the fire sound effect, which is now this one, and I want a different one. Ooh. Alright, I see I forgot the bit that I was importing some new sound effects, so I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to go to this folder. Here it is, and I'm going to import some of the sound effects I collected because I wanted a better sound. Here, where is it? Okay, yeah, there we go. Here are the weapon sound effects I selected. I think I got these from the internet somewhere, or maybe from some of our previous games, I'm not sure. And okay, you can hear this. It's a more appropriate sound for shooting a big energy ball. So we're going to select that for our player, the weapon 1 sound effect. You might want to check the compression, etc., and the settings of the sound effect later. I'm not going to talk about that, I think. Alright, so sound effect is set up. Maybe give him some more lives. I'm not sure if 3 is okay. Let's make it 5. Why not? A sound effect for when you're hit. Oh, I think I might have a new one for that as well. Let's just go there. I think we can do ouch. And this, while we're at it, we're going to do some the other one as well. So okay, death effect. Oh, that's the death effect. Is not, it's like it's a particle effect. I think we need to implement a death sound somewhere else, but let's just do the ouch. Ouch is fun.
Ouch!
Ouch. Yeah. They got me. Alright, let's give it a roll. What you're seeing that I'm deleting the prefab from the scene because you don't want it in there when you're running it, otherwise you'll just have 2 players. Alright, let's run it. Okay, this is looking pretty good already. Alright. Shooting is nice. And the spawn location is okay. The projectile is okay. Doing lots of damage. I'm not hearing anything. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe I muted the game. So let's just open up this and see if I did. Yeah, mute. There you go. Okay, maybe now. That was pretty cool. Alright, one more thing I forgot is the trail. I need to have a nice, like a jet trail, a movement trail for my player. So that's one of the last things I'm going to add. So what I'll be doing is just dragging this little guy in here again. So there we have him, and then I'm going to take a look at just a different one, a different player as a reference. Let's just take this one. And you'll notice that this one has a like a rocket trail, and I want that for my player as well. So what I do, I'll just drag it over here, continue. You see that this thing, I don't need it anymore, just throw it away. It's called a track trail. I'm not sure, I don't think this one has tracks, so let's just call it trail. And let's position it. Well, I'm so bad at positioning stuff in 3D like this. You could do it like with a snap, I think. Let's just hit the V button. I can snap it at a vertex. That's not right. You don't want it there. You want it a little bit lower. Alright. So this is about right, I think. I want the color to be more white and blue. So, alright. Just apply it. Throw it out. Alright, now we have our trail. It's maybe a bit too wide. I'll probably tweak that later. And you'll notice that the sound is muted again because I adjusted it at runtime and I didn't save the settings. So, okay, there you go. You have the player ready. Now let's move on and create some enemies and pickups and other stuff. Alright, so that already looks pretty awesome to have our own player in there. Now we need something to shoot at. So let's open up the 3D file we created. Alright, there we go. I'll just make this a little bit bigger. And I thought maybe a good object to start with is this happy little tree. And we'll just drag it out there. The tree big. Get rid of the rest. So, okay. Here's our tree. First thing we need to do is create a new prefab out of it. So we'll just drag it into the foliage folder. Prefab. Okay, there we are. And now we're going to take a look at the example that's already present inside the game. Let's just drag the palm tree in here. Alright. So when we look at the palm tree, you can see it has a destructible script attached. So our tree also needs this script. I'm going to copy it, going to paste it, and now we're going to take a, I'm going to throw away the palm tree because we don't need that anymore. Maybe I want to apply the prefab. So when we look at the destructible script, we see a couple of parameters that can be tweaked. The first one is lives. You can see that as a health for the tree. So if you hit it 2 times with a weapon that does 1 damage, it will be destroyed. I think our weapon does more damage, so it will be destroyed when you hit it once. Here's a score. Well, so pretty obvious. Hit material. I think it could light up or something, I'm not sure, so I'm going to skip this. Impact and effect on impact and effect on death. That's a particle effect, so you can just, if I'm not mistaken, I could just get an effect and drag it on there, like death explosion. Ooh, alright, there we go. Stop. Simulate. Okay, it even has a sound effect. So if I wanted to, I could add that. I think, though, that there's already a default death effect. So I don't think I really need to. But just for fun, I could put it on there. Dynamic, that means if you can bump it over and then it bounces around. Which would be a bit silly, I think. So I'm going to turn this off. Die on collision means if the player should die when it hits this tree, and with dying means that you're game over. You can, for instance, when you bump into a building in the regular Operation Desert Road game, you die, you're game over, you don't lose a life, you're dead. So if you want that, you can click this. Damage player on collision. should the player lose health when he bumps into this. I think the tree is big enough to justify that. So we're gonna click this little button, right? Apply it. We don't need that. And now we're going to position it somewhere that will meet it. We can just leave it in the scene for now for testing. It will just work as is. I think we'll just position it somewhere around here. One thing you have to consider though is that the player moves on a grid, so you don't want to position it somewhere you don't meet it. So I think we'll just position it at X2 and Z10. This should be an okay position. So there's another problem. As you can see, of course, in what we just played, is that you move pretty fast and you'll probably be past this tree like in a second. So you don't get any chance to play around with it. So what we need to do is fix that, of course. So we'll take a look at our Harrier prefab, and we're gonna deselect auto move forward, and we're gonna change the move direction for now to the XZ plane. So it's easier to maneuver and move towards the tree if you can really steer yourself. So hopefully that should do the trick. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. So let's run it. Alright, there we are. There's our happy little tree. And now we can go towards it. And let's just test what happens when we bump into it. Alright, we lose one of our lives, I think. Didn't quite catch it. Now let's run it again and see if we can shoot it as well. Alright, that's also great. So I think for our tree we're good. Alright, let's try something else. We're gonna try to recreate a turret, and for that we're going to use the stone head over here. There we go. Going to drag it out, and I'm going to create a prefab out of that. Let's just call it stone head prefab. Oops. Stone head prefab. And we're gonna make it into a turret. So here's our turret example. Let's move it a bit. And as you can see, there are some problems with our stone head. The first one is that the pivot is not located at the right spot. And of course the stone head isn't looking in the right direction, but that's easily fixed. You can just rotate it, no problem. But for us the pivot is a bit of a problem with positioning, so we really would need to fix that. So we're heading back to Cubicle. Let's just update it. Okay, so that looks pretty okay. Now we need to copy the script. The enemy turret has the enemy turret script. Alright, we'll just go ahead and copy that over here. And let's just see how that is set up. Because this is a little bit more complicated than destructible that we did just now. So first we're going to take a look at the lives and score. This is similar to what we saw just now. The activity, I think that's something that's done dynamically. The range on which it should become active, well, you might want to tweak this. It depends on the speed of the game you're creating. Hit material, that's something we saw before as well. I think you can just drag a default material in here. The impact and depth effect, it's all pretty straightforward. Spawn, pickup chance, and spawn, and which pickups should be spawned. Well, you could change that as well. Oh yeah, this is fun. This could spawn a soldier when it's destroyed. I think we'll put that to 0. I don't want any soldiers in my game. Projectile default enemy bullet. It's good for now, but like with the player, you could change this into, well, maybe we can change it into a fireball. I'm not sure. Do we have something that's fiery? Yeah, we have. How big is it? That's pretty big, maybe a little bit too big. Let's just half size that. Alright. Apply it, and then we're gonna set it to, there you go. Hopefully this works. Alright, the gun turret muzzle flash. This one is pretty important. So, okay, pay attention you guys, this is important. The object needs a place to spawn its projectiles, and it's similar with the player, but with the player we had this big button that set set all the default values, and we'll probably have that for the final version of the package here as well. But for now we need an object where to instantiate the projectiles. So you see that the turret has that set up. It has that over here at the end of the barrel, and so for now I'm going to copy this and make it a child of the stone head. Okay, but you see it still has the wrong position, so I'll just I'll 0 this, and then I'm going to position it, well, I want the bullets to spawn out of its mouth, so somewhere over there. Yeah, that's, for now I think that's pretty much, oh no, I need to put it a little bit more in front. There you go. Alright, maybe this is a good position. Let's take a look at the top. No. Alright, maybe here. Alright, for now that's okay. And now I can set it up. It still references the wrong one, so I need to, maybe I should just name it Stonehead. How's that called? Dummy. I think any name will do here, but just so I can see that it really belongs there. Alright, the sound effect is still referenced wrong as well, so I need to reference that over here. Rate of fire, well, we might be able to tweak that later on. Let's just see what it does right now, but for now this is the way you have to do it. Going to apply the prefab, get rid of this one, get rid of this one. I'm going to put it in a place where I'm going to meet it. So somewhere over there would be okay, I think. Let's just see. It's floating in the air a bit. I'm not sure if that's okay. We'll just have to wait and see. So let's play our game. Alright, there it is. Ha! That's fun. I think I saw an error there. Let's just quickly... Enemy turret script is providing an error. I'll just show you guys at line 42. I'm just going to open it up and see what's wrong. We might fix this for the final version. Alright. It gives an error on the projectile when it wants to fire. So there's something wrong with the projectile itself or the spawn location. Let's check it out pretty quick. Spawn location is okay. The projectile is not referenced correctly. So let's just find out what happened there. Okay, it's gone. Maybe this is okay when I do it like that. I think the reference got lost when I deleted the fireball from the scene. So, okay. Try it again. Yeah, whoa, there it goes. Holy smoke. So you don't want to run into that. And luckily now, as you can see, he shoots over me. but probably when I am flying through the air, it will probably hit me. So alright, so I think for now, if I just, well, put it on the ground, it's dangerous enough to be a turret. I'm okay with this. I'm going to apply it, and that's that. Alright, for this next bit, we're going to try to create a more tank-like behavior. And I'm sure that if we were to run it right now, we would get lots of errors. So I need to run through the same stuff we did with the turret, just very quickly. What's important? Let's just enemy shell. That's okay for now. The muzzle flash. We need a muzzle flash object. I'm just gonna copy this and drag that on there, and reset it. For now, I'm just gonna move it a bit to, I don't know, where should the bullets spawn on this thing? There. I usually place it a little bit in front of the object just to make sure that that the bullets don't spawn inside the enemy. I think that's okay. I'll just muzzle dummy, and I'll name it just not to get confused with the other one. So I still need to apply it. There you go, and I'm going to apply that over there as well for the sound effect. A rate of fire, I think that's okay. The speed is pretty important, so for now I'll just leave it here because for testing it's okay, but probably for in-game, for the real game, I need to make this a lot higher. Direction, I'm not sure what this does. Up, down, left, right. I think up means, I'm not sure what this means. I'll just have to wait and see. I'm gonna apply this prefab. I'm going to position it a little bit in front of the player. Let's just see, like -2 is okay, 0, 10 is okay, I think. Let's get rid of this thing, and we'll just run it, just see what happens. Oh, there it goes. Alright, okay, hang on, don't go anywhere. So this is already looking pretty decent. I'm pretty happy with this, primarily because I didn't get any errors. And it shoots, which is cool as well. That's so cool. Don't kill me. Oh, there you go. Alright, we have one more object to go, and that's our building. We're gonna create our own version of a building. Once again, we'll be needing our 3D objects, and we're gonna create a building out of this mammoth. So we'll take the mammoth. Oh, hang on. There you go, mammoth. And we'll create a prefab out of it. I'll put it inside the buildings. Once again, it doesn't make any difference where you put it. For these types of, oh, I already created one earlier, right? It doesn't make a difference where you put it, but for organization reasons, I like to keep it neat and clean. So we'll throw away the rest. It's probably just a destructible script I need to add here, but just to be safe, I'll take a look at the other buildings that we already have, like this one. I don't know. It's pretty big. Destructible building script. Copy the component. Paste the component. Alright. So, what else do we need to do? Yeah, well, I'm thinking if this is our view, that we need to rotate it a bit. Alright, and I think we're gonna scale it a bit too, just to see what happens. Maybe 4. Is that? No, that's too much, I think. Let's just say 2. And the fun thing about buildings is that when you run into it, you die. So that's still set up here. Damage player on collision as well. Civilians, we don't want any civilians to spawn out of this mammoth, I'm sure. So, okay, we're gonna apply that. We're gonna get rid of that. Where are we going to position it? -2, maybe 10 away. I'm not sure. Alright, just give it a run. Let's see what happens. Ha! That's so cool. Yeah, that's what happens with buildings when you shoot them. But I only shot it like once or twice and it's already dead, so that's no good. So I'm going to give it some more lives. Like 100. Right, you get a lot more points when you destroy this thing. Depth effect. I think you automatically see like these clouds coming up if it's a building. I'm not sure. Yeah, destructible building script. Yeah, probably. I'm not sure. Yeah. I don't think you can set this. This is just a state that it's in. Alright, what else do we need to change? Let's just see again. Yeah, this is cool. Alright, just for fun I'm going to try to change the hit material to like a white. White works better than this pink default material. Do I have a material? Maybe civilians hit? I don't know. Effect? Missive white? Yeah, I'll just use that. Apply. Yeah, it looks a lot better. Now I'm going to run it with sound again. Let's just see if I can get the sound going. I'll just have to go over here in the game object. In the settings, let's just see. Oh, it's muted again. Get rid of the music. There you go. That's totally cool. Alright. This works. Okay, so for this last bit we're going to do more global changes to our game, and I'll just run it very quickly and you'll see what I mean. I want to change the way the road and the environment looks, and the easiest way to do that is just change the texture. It's pretty obvious, but we'll just change the texture and give the whole thing a brand new look. So the texture is located here. Let's just open that up inside Explorer so you can see, okay, this is the texture we're using right now. The easiest way is just to slap something over that. So I'm going to open it in Photoshop. So there you go, there's the texture, and I've prepared something already. I'll open that up as well. Looking at the reference I found of Space Harrier. So this is the reference. So it has all these checkers, and luckily I had some checkers lying around already. So I created, let's just see, I don't know where I put it. Oh, Voxel Road. Here you go. So I created this from looking at the reference, and just going to copy that over this. So okay, I'm going to save it, which is actually pretty handy, these checkers, because they give you a good sense of scale, because you have these little checkers are like 1 meter, and the bigger ones are 2 and the large ones are 4, etc, etc. So it gives you, for level design purposes, it's also pretty handy. So, and not only it looks more Space Harrier like, it's also handy for level design. So I'm going to save this right on top of the desert road. You could of course create a new file if you wanted to. And there you go. That's done pretty quickly and already looks completely different. So I totally advise you that you do this when you create your own game. Create a new background, create a new street texture. It's located here, and it's very easy to do. You can even grab something from Google Maps, or I don't know, some random texture, some concrete or whatever, just to give it a completely different look. And the last thing I'm going to do is maybe just pop in some more of the stuff we made just to see how it looks. Just can play it like that. There's a couple of other adjustments quick adjustments I want to make. I just want to see how it would look from a different camera perspective. So I'm going to take a look at the camera. Now first I'm going to make sure that the player doesn't move. Alright, so I'm going to change that. I'm going to... Right, so now, okay, we're not moving anymore. Of course the drone is moving. Now I'm going to just quickly see how that would look. Can I just... No, this would of course only work runtime. Let's set that to 0. Maybe 2. And maybe set this to 0 as well. Ooh, that's already looking pretty cool. Now when I change the background color to something more like this. Let's just try that. This already looks pretty cool, people. This is so cool. Maybe if I tweak the camera a little bit more. Well, I'm not sure if I'm really going for this. I kind of like the top-down view, just to give you an idea of what could be possible. Let's just make the player move again. Auto forward. Alright. Ooh, I'm a bit off screen now, still needs some tweaking. Not bad at all. Okay, so what we're doing in the next tutorial is to do something about the interface and the menu screens to make it look a bit more like Voxel Harrier, and we're going to add some music and some more sound effects as well. So see you in the next video. Bye bye.